Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Livingston County Board of Commissioners meeting for June 24, 2024. I'm calling the meeting to order officially, and we'll start with a moment of prayer by Commissioner Nakagiri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you would bow your heads. O Lord, we beg you to hear our supplications. Do not let our words fall on deaf ears. Let us come to you each morning with hearts full of joy. For you are our most high God, and everything we have comes from you. Bless us that we might bless others. Let us always look to you for every provision. Let us each be an open vessel filled with your wisdom, that others might know your saving grace. Amen.
Amen. Next, will you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Drick,
Here.
Commissioner Helserman,
Here.
Commissioner Domas,
Here.
Commissioner Sample,
Here.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Here.
Commissioner Deaton,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Fiani,
Here.
Commissioner Gross.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Item number 5 on the agenda tonight is approval of agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second,
Discussion.
I move to amend the agenda to modify it and have an item 13 FOIA appeals become the new number 7. Following correspondence.
Support.
Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Fiani, support by Commissioner Helserman, that 13 rise and be in place for 7. Comment, questions, analysis, objections? Seeing none, voice vote. All those in favor kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's a 9-0 change in the agenda. It's approved. Now we have to go back to the original agenda as amended. Any comment, analysis, question? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amended agenda kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's also 9-0. Item number 6. 6 sub A is correspondence. Lake County has sent us a resolution in opposition to fiscal year 2025 governor's recommended budget for the reduction of operational funding to the Michigan Conservation Districts and also the elimination of local administration of the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program. Additionally, correspondence is from Lake County resolution recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Can I have a motion?
Motion to accept and place on file correspondence, all correspondence.
And second.
Thank you. Motion by Fiani and second by Commissioner Smith to accept correspondence and place on file. All those in favor, kindly voice vote, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? 9-0, that passes. We're on to the new number 7, which is a FOIA appeal with appellant Tara A. Pearson. If you'd come forward and have a seat, the chair is going to decline to be in charge of this section because of it's not going to look right. So I decline, and vice chair, it takes over in case of I'm not doing things. Commissioner Fiani is in charge.
So at this time, we have item 7, the FOIA appeal. The board has received copies of the request, the response, and the appeal letter. What we'll do is, Ms. Pearson, you'll have 5 minutes to present your case. Then I'll invite Administrator Byrd and our Director of Human Resources to come up, and you may step back, and then they will have 5 minutes to present their case, and then you will have 3 minutes to provide any closing discussion or arguments you wish, at which time, following that, we'll have opportunity for a motion and discussion. So I invite you at this time to begin.
I should stand. I'm so used to standing when I argue, I apologize. Yes,
There's a mic over here.
no, I don't need to stand. I'm joking. No,
Okay, okay.
thank you though. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, I submitted a FOIA request for the 2023 employee survey, which I know that's not the official name of the survey, but the employee survey, including all commentary feedback as to all departments and the Board of Commissioners. What I received was a copy of the Culture and Engagement Insights Executive Summary, which is a compilation of what I would call data points as far as generalizations of whatever questions the employees were asked. My request for the commentary feedback as to each department, including the Board of Commissioners, was denied based upon MCL 152431M. As you can see in my addendum to the appeal, the basis for that appeal is not in comport with what this actually was. First off, it indicated that part of the appeal was that it would disclose the identities of people making comments, I know not to be accurate because the comments were also anonymous. And the comments anonymously have been disclosed to the departments. So the matter has been disclosed. The information is also not preliminary to any determination of policy or action, which is another exception under the statute. It was clearly analytical and a summary as identified right on the page of the survey and also the several pages within the survey. What I am appealing is the denial of my request for commentary feedback as to all departments, including Board of Commissioners. And I keep saying that because I don't include Board of Commissioners as a department. Obviously, you are your own entity. So departments and Board of Commissioners is what I'm requesting. This is a survey that was funded by the taxpayers. The taxpayers have a right to know what our employees think of the efficiency and effective functioning of our government, of our departments, our Board of Commissioners being its own entity. We have a right to know what they think of the internal workings of our department, what is good, what is bad, what needs to be fixed, what they think is great, the good, the bad, the ugly. And the denial of my request for the commentary feedback, I think, is not valid based on the citation that was provided. And I feel as a taxpayer, I'm entitled to this information as someone being a taxpayer that funded the survey. And I also want to know what our own employees think about the own internal functioning and efficiency of our government, our departments, and what they think. They have a better perspective than anyone on the outside and anyone in this room as to what changes can be made, should be made, shouldn't be made. And that is valuable feedback and necessary feedback to progress and effective government. And that is all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you. And this is,
Step back.
if you wish, if you may. Administrator Byrd and Director, you will also have 5 minutes to address the board regarding this appeal.
Gavel me down if I 501. Thank you, Commissioners, for the chance to address this tonight. Ms. Pearson was correct in what was shared with her. It was the summary presentation that we provided the Personnel Committee. That usually happens in February or March, but we did not provide the comments. And I want to just touch on the 3 points made in the written appeal that you received. The first being that the survey is anonymous, so releasing the feedback will not, impugn or limit frank communications. The comments are anonymous, but when we announced this survey, which happened last November, we tell the staff members that their answers will be kept confidential. The answers include their comments. There's one exception to that, and that is that we provide the comments to the department so that the department heads can look through their survey results and try to find where they need to make improvements to increase employee engagement or also to find out what's going well. And so we make that clear from the get-go when we communicate with our staff. When Intergage sends out the survey, they ask for honest thoughts. They also stress confidentiality. We stress the confidentiality so that employees feel very comfortable being honest with us. We want them to feel completely at ease with sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly so that their department head can understand that and hopefully make improvements. While the identity of the commenter is not included, their department is. So for example, you might have a paragraph that says, I don't like my director, I don't like my supervisor, I don't like the board, and here's 18 reasons why. And then it says an employee from the fill in the blank department. And so people who are named may very well not be kept anonymous, and that could create friction if this were a document or if those were comments that were to be shared publicly. The bottom line is, if you're an employee and you write constructive criticism or maybe just criticism about your day-to-day work-life experience, and that comment shows up somewhere, I don't know where, let's just say it shows up somewhere, whether your name is on it or not, it is going to freak you out. It's going to make you paranoid. You're not going to do the survey anymore. It's just the bottom line. So we do feel like it would limit frank communication. I actually think it would end frank communication if we're not allowed to exempt this information from disclosure. The second point was that the information was released to each department head with no reservation that the information was confidential or prohibited from disclosure. We do say in our initial email that the only entity receiving this information will be the department head. We have had a request from Department A to get Department B's results. We deny that. We don't share this across departments internally, let alone public disclosure. And so I think it would be a little bit abnormal for a department head who's read all the information about the survey to feel it would be appropriate to disclose this. It's for their use and their use only. And then the third point, the information requested is not preliminary to any agency determination of policy or action, but merely collected for analytics as a summary of culture engagement insights as clearly identified on page 1 and throughout the survey. I will tell you the survey has been far more than analytics for us. In fact, in the Intergage presentation that you hopefully have, one of the things that it lists the survey as being for is to create key data for the company's long-term strategy. This survey has been used repeatedly to develop policies and actions, which is exactly why we think this FOIA exemption applies. I'll share just a couple examples. The remote work policy, its creation and its continued existence ties largely to the feedback we get in this survey. The 2022 wage and benefit study, massive policy implications, massive financial implications. We do those every decade or so. But when we looked at the results from 21 and 22, it got pushed to the front burner because of the survey. We were running into a problem with our compensation that needed to be addressed, and thankfully the board addressed it. Jennifer's HR department has completely revamped all of their onboarding policies solely due to the responses that we received from this survey. Collective bargaining matters sometimes show up in this survey, things we won't talk about in this meeting. Individual management styles have been altered based on this survey. There is a never-ending list of policies and actions that stem from this survey. MCL 15.243 states that the public body has to show that the public interest in encouraging frank communication between officials and employees of public bodies clearly outweighs the public interest in disclosure. And we believe that forced disclosure of these comments will have a chilling effect on future survey participation. In fact, I would argue that the survey may be rendered largely meaningless if employee comments are subject to public release. The public interest in having an engaged county workforce and having a method to formulate sound policy based on employee feedback far outweighs whatever perceived benefit there is to disclosure. Now, we understand that us just saying something's confidential doesn't make it confidential, but we feel very strongly that the exemption outlined in law does in fact qualify at this point. So we've done the survey for 7 years. It's gotten better every year. We've made massive improvements to our workforce, and we really appreciate the ability that our employees have to be honest and frank with us, and we just want to preserve that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
If you don't mind taking a step back, and then I invite Ms. Pearson up for your closing remarks. You'll have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Will we be able to direct questions
Yeah.
to them after these remarks?
Yes, following her closing remarks, each commissioner will have the opportunity, if they wish to exercise it, to inquire.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Now, the results are not confidential. They've been disclosed to others. The fact that results are not disclosed even to other departments is troubling to me because, again, where is the transparency? Everyone should know how the government is functioning and what our employees as our best indicators know from inside. The argument that somebody's identity will be known because at the very bottom of the comments, it says what department they're from, that's easily redacted. I'll give you my Sharpie to do that. So that problem is resolved immediately. Again, I do not believe that employees would withhold comments if they thought that they were going to be shared. Honestly, if the employees that I've spoken to, if they felt like their thoughts and words were actually going to be effective, I think they would be more frank. But taxpayers have a right to this information. We have a right to feedback about the effectiveness of the government, and the minor issue of what department made the comment is easily rectified by redacting that at the end. Am I back or are they coming?
Thank you. So what I'll do is I'll propose that, because I would invite them up as well. I was gonna say, oh, I think they're connected. So you may sit, I was gonna say, you may sit there. Yes.
I can't stand where, I can't sit there.
You may,
Sit in the middle and we'll stand on the side.
yes.
Yes.
And then I was gonna say, we have the other microphone here. So at this time, each commissioner will have one opportunity to present a question or share their thoughts. We'll start with Commissioner Hauserman and go right down the row.
Yeah, my question to all of you, if the survey says confidential, that is in the outline of what the survey will be used for and will not be used for, seems to me it's clearly laid out. Does in your mind, Tara, does that what they say does not have their approval to come out? How is their confidentiality protected if they don't want it to come out? How is the individuals?
Well, first off, the individual is protected because their name is not anywhere. The comments are anonymous. What Mr. Bird indicated was that comments may indicate at the bottom what department they came from, not what person in the department they came from. And as I said, that could easily be redacted so that you have comments about a department without any indication of where it came from. So then it's just a matter of feedback for everyone's benefit. Which I think is everyone's benefit. It is the benefit of every department and the board commissioners that our entire government be as effective and positively functional as possible.
So then, I don't know, I've not asked for individual comments personally, kind of because of I trust the people that are dealing with it, that they tell us honestly what's going on. I think that, you know, so you think that would have no dampening effect upon people saying their mind? In your mind, that would, people would be more likely to say exactly what's up there in their mind if they knew that what they said might get into the paper.
what, not into the paper. What
How do
I'm
we
s-
know?
What I'm saying is, number one, nobody's identity is going to be released. No department has to be released. That could be redacted. And employees I've spoken with feel like they're not being heard. So I think that there is a possibility that they would be more frank in some of their comments if they thought the comments were going to be actually taken into account.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gross, any comments or questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Pearson, as our administrator, Mr. Byrd indicated, we've done this survey 6, 7 years at least. And I'm wondering what the motivation is for your request at this point.
Because I'd like to hear some feedback from our employees. I mean, I have communications with many employees, and I'm interested is, number one, if those comments are actually being presented for some positive change. And number two, I, like anyone else, should be in favor of knowing the good and the bad and the ugly so we can make everything better. And as a taxpayer, I feel like I have a right to this information.
And don't you think when our employees participate in this, and they've been given the assurance of confidentiality, don't you think that they will be open and say what's on their mind about any issue, any aspect of their employment?
It's my understanding that they do that because it is anonymous. Their names are not attached to any of the comments.
Okay, so there should be no fear factor on the part of our employees then.
Shouldn't be.
And do you know that there is?
Not that I've heard.
I don't know if
Because it's
anybody
anonymous.
does.
I don't know why there would be a fear factor because it is anonymous. No one's ever gonna know what employee made a comment because it doesn't say quotation by so-and-so.
And that's the purpose of the survey being done under the auspices of confidentiality. It's the only way something like that is going to work.
Correct. That's why their name is not provided. And as I indicated, if there is a concern that what department made the comment could be problematic, that's easily redacted. So then there's absolutely no tie of the comment to a department, let alone an individual.
Well, I respectfully disagree with your premise, but it's no further questions.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I want to share some perspectives with my colleagues here who will vote on this and the public. This is clearly a political agenda here. We have Ms. Pearson and her allies, the Williams, the mother and the daughter, have made allegations about, in my words, not theirs. The board is too hard on the employees. We're too mean to the employees. I do have a quote though from one of the candidates, Megan Williams, in her press release announcing her campaign. So I want to make it clear that this is her words. This is not the press's words. This is a press release that Ms. Williams crafted the words, chose them precisely to deliver the message she wants. So it says here, quote, I have met some very smart and energetic county employees. Unfortunately, my opponent's constant attacks have resulted in many of them retiring early or leaving for other jobs. That brain drain is a significant loss to county taxpayers, especially in this tight labor market, end quote. So I want to comment on that. For being as mean as we are, that at least the allegation, we have, our county has achieved top workplace awards for the last 2 years. And so I find the allegations off base. What is really at stake in this FOIA is they're fishing for unfavorable comments. And I haven't seen the surveys. I haven't asked for the comments. As my opponent, has suggested rely on the experts, you know, our county administrator, our HR director, to take the data and act upon it in a manner that improves employee engagement, which it ultimately improves things for the taxpayer, providing better service. So relying on the experts as has been suggested by others running for office. I would also like to say that I did ask for some data on employee participation rates. Since we went to Energage, which has been 2 or 3 years, I'm not 100% sure, but it's been a short time. But previously, the county administered the survey on its own, you know, with our own staff. And the participation rate, because employees didn't have as much confidence of, you know, or degree, they were questioning the confidentiality if it's being administered by our own staff. So the participation rate was in the mid 40%, 45%. Since we went to Energage, the participation rate is in the low 60%. And I'm not asking a question, but looking for a nod. My numbers are correct.
Yes, we've been with Energage 7 years, and you're exactly correct. It went from the 40 percentile response rate up to the 60. So in 1 year, 34% increase when we went outside to do the survey.
And I draw the conclusion that is largely because it's administered by an outside firm. There's a higher degree of confidence on the employee's part that their confidentiality will be maintained. I think it is appalling that we're going to draw the employees into the middle of a political battle. And I am totally against it. I will protect the confidentiality of the employees, which in turn will enable them to, in future surveys, to give their honest feedback. I would encourage the FOIA appellant and anybody else to actually go talk to some of these very smart and energetic employees that have been berated by me and get their comments on the record. Let's not hide behind these anonymous employees. You know, it's ridiculous that we are going to politicize and draw the employees into this political battle. I'm totally opposed to it. I will be voting against the appeal. Let the appellant take us to court and we'll battle it out there. That's all I have to say.
Commissioner Sample, any questions or comments?
Yeah, on the employee survey, it was stated that it was only going to be shared with the directors of the departments.
Yes.
So they were put on notice that
Yes.
it was anonymous only to the directors.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the email went out, I believe it was November 15th, I believe, where we outlined how the information would be used in regard to the employee-specific comments, and it's stressed that it's only going to go to the department that they're part of.
Okay, thank you.
Chairman Drick, any questions or comments?
None.
I have no questions or comments. Commissioner Deaton?
Yeah, I guess a comment. Over my 38 years at the federal government, in the military, and working in the automotive industry, I've been a part of many of these surveys, and they flat out go to the directors and the supervisors so they can make change. And I've never seen anybody ever come from the outside to try and hurt the employees by taking this information. Now, what I did with this particular survey, since it was so great, I still read through it. And I saw a little bit of room of improvement. And that was where some of the employees mentioned that it would be nice if we took a bigger role in their development. So I took the initiative and I worked with our HR department and our administration. And I wanted to get some work over to our Cleary University and develop a leadership program for our middle management employees. So this is what your commissioners do with that information. Thank you.
Commissioner Domas?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, like my fellow commissioners, am offended that this charge is made with the apprehension that we'll take it seriously on its face, it is nothing more than a political attempt to defame an outstanding organization and its outstanding employees. Nothing that you've said here sounds at all like the county government that I'm familiar with, and I've been here nearly 30 years. So, that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Smith, any questions or comments?
No, my questions have been asked. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the board has two options. One is to uphold the partial denial. So uphold the partial denial, or reverse the partial denial. Is there a motion to uphold the partial denial and authorize the board chair to issue a written response to the appeal?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Sample. Is there a second?
Support, Smith.
Seconded by Commissioner Smith. Now, to uphold the partial denial is to maintain the status quo and to not approve the appeal. Does everyone understand the motion on the table? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is approved 9-0. So this concludes the FOIA appeal. Thank you very much for everyone's time.
The next item on tonight's agenda is item for call to the public. I think it's been renumbered now 8. The call to the public to start the meeting tonight is 3 minutes long. At the end of the meeting is 2 minutes. You have to fill out a card and submit it to our secretary to get in line to speak. Cards are out in the foyer and I think might be up here to also. It's not a question and answer session. You don't get to ask us to raise our hands or vote. All we do is listen. And you address the chair and no particular commissioner. The matter is timed, and if you get close to the end, we show you're close to the end. 3 minutes. And clerk, you may begin with the first card.
Chuck Wright from Handy Township, followed by Karen Groenhout.
At last month's meeting, there was a resolution to approve ARPA funding for Handy Township and wastewater treatment plant. The presentation went a little bit rough, and you gentlemen were right to table that item. You're going to be bringing it back up this evening, and I hope you'd look at the facts and not the presentation from last month and the problems that were associated with it. The township wastewater treatment plant does need to have their RBC replaced. It's a good use of ARPA funds. And I'd like you to move forward and approve that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Groenhout from Brighton Township, followed by Stephanie Miklas.
Good evening, Karen Gruenhout, Brighton Township. I'm also your public defender. I do have a resolution that is in front of the board today that was tabled in April 22nd of 2024. I am hoping that I have the opportunity to speak this evening with regard to that tabled resolution. I know there has been a lot of discussions between that time and now. I do believe that there's information that needs to be given to the board prior to that decision being made. I also do have Nicole Walter, our Michigan Indigent Defense Commission representative here this evening also, in case there are any questions with regard to that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Miklas from Howell, followed by Steve Williams.
Good evening. I take particular offense to the slander of Tara for trying to do the right thing by the taxpayers. The only paranoia the county employees would feel would be from the extremist members of the board retaliating against them making comments. So I'd like to make that clear that that's my view of it. Why would the public care? And in fact, they would have a personal interest in knowing the employee satisfaction level, especially when it's anonymous. Why would a member of the public retaliate when you're twisting this political motivation towards an honest candidate here? It's the first thought I had when I heard that. So please let that sink in for a moment. Who's going to be doing the retaliating? It's not going to be the public, the tax-paying public who deserves to know the level of satisfaction of county employees. A year ago, you eliminated the DEI or the pride flags with public services. Back in 1995, I completed my degree at Central Michigan University. My final paper was on the high rate of suicide experienced by the LGBTQ community. Heartland has had a FOIA submitted of the extremist board members, and the teacher comments were made public, and they thanked us for it. I was among those reading the comments, and the extremist board members are being exposed for what they're doing and harming the kids in the process. I think it's wrong that you would smear someone's reputation. They're running for a good reason, even though I don't identify at this point with Republicanism because I have my reasons. The other thing is we've had a lot of accidental shootings lately. You guys, proclaim to be a constitutional county. There's no such thing I've seen with these accidental shootings in regards to them being a well-regulated militia. And I think, you need to really look into that. I'm reading a book right now called The Kingdom, the Power, and the Glory by Timothy Alberta, son of a pastor in Brighton, and very well-founded view of the extremism, a lot of it in this county, other places around the US. I just wanted to get my point of view, and thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Williams, Marion Township, followed by Heather Williams.
Hello, Commissioners. I did not come to talk about FOIAs, but to paraphrase The Princess Bride, I do not think that term anonymous survey means what you think it does, because I guarantee I've had much experience in that in the private and public sector. And normally what happens is all those anonymous remarks are compiled and you come up with a tiger team or some kind of reactionary group that will address them, not hide them away. So I think if Tara decides to sue you, you are going to be spending more county money, wasting it on attorneys. But I actually came because I was at the GOP Meet the Candidate event on Thursday. And I was very disappointed to see all three of our incumbent commissioners who were there lying through their teeth. And I won't name them because I don't want to violate the rules. I will say one thing, or a couple, because I have a whole page. It comes out every year, okay? So I was actually on the state committee for developing the policy development committee in 2019, 2020. There are 2 sections in this book that address solar power. I can't say that the person who talked about a meeting with members was wrong because I wasn't at the meeting. I can say that the contention that Farm Bureau has no solar power policy is wrong. I can also say the idea that the Board of Commissioners has rolled back our taxes is factually incorrect. It assumes that we, the taxpayers, are too stupid to remember the Headley Amendment or Proposal A. If you guys want to roll back taxes, why don't you eliminate the perks you receive as full-time, as part-time employees rather than full-time employees? That is very unusual for part-time employees to get full medical, dental, and eye care benefits. And that is something that, unlike your pay, you don't have to vote on it every 2 years to see if it's going to be raised or not. So as the cost of all that insurance goes up, you automatically get an increase. If you want to roll back taxes, do something about that. Now, I was reminded that some people believe that telling the same lie over and over and over will somehow make it truth, which is not the case. Donald Trump is right about fake news, but fake news is easier to debunk than ever before. So one of the things I have to hand out at the conclusion, so I don't have to read it all to you, is a letter I wrote this board in June of 2021, which addresses the whole DEI and Metro Parks issue, which shouldn't have even been part of that Meet the Candidate event the other day anyway, because it has nothing to do with the current election. But go ahead and read that. And I have also included the Code of Ethics and Conduct for Emmett County, because after that Meet the Candidate, I did a search on our website, our county website that I helped pay for. I searched for ethics. What comes up? It says no results found. That's pretty sad.
Mr. Williams, you can hand those to the clerk, please. Thank you.
Please put a copy in the official record.
Yes, I will.
They're more than enough.
Okay, thank you.
Give an extra one in case the press was here.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Heather Williams from Marion Township, followed by Colleen Quinn.
Good evening. My name is Heather, Mrs. Stephen Williams. I'm a candidate for the Livingston County Board of Commissioners, 5th District, which includes the city of Howell and Marion Township. I am a pro-life, socially and fiscally conservative graduate of Maranatha Baptist University. I am a wife, mother, farmer, and small business owner. I worked as a loan officer for 2 decades. That experience would be very beneficial when helping to develop common sense, effective county budgets. I also work very well with people from different organizations and am a good listener. I have 40 years of experience working with various public and private civic organizations. I started farming in earnest at an early age when my mother became ill and my sister and I had to take over many of her responsibilities. One lesson every farmer learns is that if you don't address a problem quickly, it will only get worse. The lawsuit recently filed by the Livingston County Courts against the Board of Commissioners is a clear example of a problem that was allowed to get worse and worse until it is now costing Livingston County taxpayers thousands of dollars in attorney's fees and wasted time. Meanwhile, Livingston County residents are denied the court services they already paid for. Whether or not you find it appalling when their workload grows and grows and the pay is not there, they're working almost double time to try to keep their dockets handled. That political propaganda has landed on their desk. And that is right from the court employees. Under Michigan law, county commissioners allocate funding and oversee many departments who are responsible for providing family care, support, and security. We haven't had a mother on our county board of commissioners, and that experience has led to a lack of focus on those responsibilities. If all incumbents running for re-election are returned to the board, we face another 4 years without comprehensive representation. I would be happy to hear your own unique perspective and welcome your support. Thank you.
Colleen Quinn from Genoa Township, and that's the final card that I have.
Good evening, Commissioners. I wasn't going to make a comment tonight, but when I heard this FOIA stuff, I had to say something. So as a former HR manager in the automotive industry, over 36 years, I have been involved in my share of employee engagement surveys and action plans. And I have to commend you for your vote. I have to commend Nathan Bird and the HR department for their response. It would be totally inappropriate to release these findings. It would shut down employees. And this sounds to me like a fishing expedition. There are plenty of ways to know how government is working. As a taxpayer, I would be appalled if that stuff was released. So this was an inappropriate request. And again, it just creeps me out that other people are doing this, so inappropriate. And thank you for standing firm. That should never be released. Thank you.
I was given a call, another card, but she said it could be the second call to the public. So Ms. Pearson, would you like 3 minutes now or 2 minutes at the second call to the public? Okay. So Tara Pearson from Genoa Township.
Sure, thank you. Come on up again when you're comfortable and seated.
I'm gonna stand if that's.
Oh, that's okay too.
I'm not surprised by the vote on the FOIA appeal. The community is screaming for transparency and honesty, and I think the commission just showed the community what they think of that request. I do want to make it clear, anyone that can read will see the agenda. I am an individual taxpayer that submitted this request. The request, the FOIA appeal issue, was politicized by members of the board that just happened to be running on primary. So just to make that clear, I did not once mention candidates, elections, anything. The opposing board members politicized that issue.
I have no further cards.
Thank you. We'll now go to Zoom. If anybody on Zoom has not yet raised their hand, it's okay to raise them now. And we'll get you 3 minutes.
I do not see any, Commissioner.
Thank you, neither do I. We'll close the Zoom call, and that now brings to an end the call to the public. Our next item number is an amended 9. It's called approval of minutes. Minutes meetings dated June 10, 2024.
Mr. Chair,
Proceed.
there is a blank that should also read May 28th, 2024. There are 2 sets of minutes here in the packet.
And that scrivener's error is now corrected. 9A should read meeting minutes, May 28, 2024. And 9B, yes, 9B is meeting minutes dated June 10, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So move, Gross.
Second, Fiani.
Moved by Commissioner Gross, seconded by Commissioner Fiani. All those, it'll be a voice vote. All those in favor of 9A and B, kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposing, kindly speak now. Hearing none, the vote is 9-0. We're now on to agenda item, amended item now 10. It's tabled items from previous meetings. The first one is Resolution 2024-04-046. It's a resolution authorizing the business property lease agreement with 1221 Building Group LLC for the Livingston County Public Defender's Office to occupy 1221 Byron Road, Howell, Michigan, 48843, brought by Karen Gronout, our public defender. Yes.
So at this time, I'll make a motion to go into closed session for the purpose of discussion of a legal opinion and to consider the purchase or lease of real property.
That fits under the statute. There's been a motion to go into close. Is there a second?
I'll support.
Thank you. Moved by moved by Fiani, and moved by Helserman. Do we need a roll call, Madam Clerk? That's what I was thinking. Would you please do a roll call vote for the motion to go into closed?
Commissioner Fiani,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Domas,
Yes.
Commissioner Sample,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Deaton,
Yes.
and Commissioner Smith. Motion carries.
Thank you. Administrator Byrd, would you do the honors?
6:49.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. The County Board of Commissioners is back in session, open session. Commissioner Nakagiri, you have the floor.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to remove 2024-04-046 from the table.
Any second?
Do we need to remove it since it was postponed? Are we able to go right into it as opposed to being?
But it says it's tabled, but I don't, I mean, it's under the category tabled items from previous meeting.
Right. I'd agree that it's proper to have a motion to pull from the table and then you pick up right where you left off.
It's
So
a
I'll-
formality.
I'll second that.
Motion removed from table made by Commissioner Nakagiri, seconded by Commissioner Fiani. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm ready to move on this personally. I'll be voting against this. I think that somewhat it's a matter of timing. And at some point, we're gonna have to bite this bullet.
Point of order.
Yeah.
We're really at a teeny tiny motion. Do we take it off the table or not?
Which is not debatable.
Okay. That's good.
Thank you.
Then I won't debate.
All those in favor of removing from the table, voice vote, kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
8-1, it is removed from the table. So 2024-04-046 is now open for discussion or comment by commissioners. Commissioners,
Are you going to the next item then? The next type of?
No.
It's
still
open
on
for
dining.
discussion.
No, sir,
It's
we're
off.
still on the lease. It's off the table. It's now
Oh,
on the agenda,
I see.
and now we have to proceed.
Okay, so.
Any commissioner have any further need for information or discussion, comment, analysis?
I think this, Mr.
Chair
Chairman,
recognizes. Go ahead.
I am favorable to this. I know, I had wished that there were some of the terms that were more favorable to the county. Because I think some of these are very unfavorable to the county, but all in all, I think that we should move forward with it. So I'm in favor.
Thank you, Commissioner D.
Yeah, in light of everything we discussed, and as Commissioner Helserman said, this is not good for the county. I will be voting no on this. And I just want to know that, we did discuss that this will be at the top of a point of contacts list of getting done. So just because we're voting no on it doesn't mean we're walking away from the building. We're going to work on this. So
Thank you. Agreed. Any further comment? A closed comment? A yes vote approves the lease as stapled to the resolution. A no vote disapproves and does not. All those voting yes, we'll do voice vote, see if we can cover it correctly that way. Yes votes kindly say yes.
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 No votes kindly say no.
No.
Madam Clerk, my ears said 7-2.
I have 2 yeses, the Commissioner Smith and Commissioner Helserman. And the rest I'm showing you no's.
Thank you. Make the record the resolution failed. We're on to item number, it's letter B. on tabled items from previous meetings.
Motion to pull from the table. Resolution 2024-05-070, resolution authorizing general fund vision tour funds for the drain commissioner to participate with Handy Township in the Silver Springs Water Pressure Project and Van Buren Road wastewater treatment plant improvements.
Support Deaton.
It's been moved and seconded. All those that agree to remove from the table kindly say aye in a voice vote.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it's 9-0 to remove from table. And we now have the resolution authorizing general fund vision tour funds for the drain commissioner to participate with Handy Township and Silver Springs Water Pressure Project and Van Buren Road wastewater treatment plant improvements. I have been given a proposed document. Is there, is it, the author was your office, correct, Brian?
Correct. We had authored a change to that. It was one of those things, we actually thought at the past meeting, this change was in front of you, but indeed it had not been, it had not come to you. So that's kind of why there was a lot of confusion at the last meeting. So
I'm under the impression that everyone has received a copy of the different or changed resolution. I'm unable to make motions. I'm waiting.
I would move that we, I don't know what the right term is. It's not, it's like an amendment in whole, that we
Would it be sufficient?
could
to
somebody
say
help me with the motion here? Because
motion to amend the resolution to reflect the updated proposal? Would that be appropriate?
right, with the reading of the updated proposal. So it's basically it takes it from being the money going to two projects to going to one project, all the money going to one project.
I'm hearing a motion. Is there a second?
Second sample.
Madam Clerk, do you have the actual written document we're talking about for our record?
It is this document. If it's this document, then yes, I do. And just for clarification, it's a motion to amend the resolution to reflect the updated proposal.
Yes.
Isn't that the wording? Okay, thank you.
And it will then take on the number assigned to it in 10B then? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, we can give it the same resolution number.
Commissioner Smith has seconded, so
I think we already had.
Yeah.
That's great.
So moved by Commissioner Hausman, seconded by Commissioner Sample.
Yep. Now we move into the discussion phase. Would anyone want a presentation from the drain commissioner first, or do you want to just?
Don't we have to move on the amendment and then move to the full thing?
We're discussing
We're
whether we
discussing.
want to amend it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I would appreciate whatever the drain commissioner has to say on the amended resolution.
So this is a long and storied resolution. We actually put this on our original list. So I think it was approved back in 2021 or 22. And it was a maintenance item. And again, the original one was for replacement of kind of a reverse grade pipe under Van Buren Road. So it was a continual issue for maintenance. And so that was that list was ultimately say approved, but adopted by the board. And at that point, the township initiated design work to replace that line and give it the proper grade. Then subsequently, they bid the project, and despite us going and speaking to a number of contractors and asking them, personally letting them know about the bid, they declined in large part because of the poor soils in the area. And they are extremely poor soils, which is probably the reason why we lost some of the grade on that pipe during installation. So anyway, the township has been wrestling with what to do. And I'm not sure what the date was, but sometime this past year, they lost one of the treatment units at the plant, an RBC unit, the rotating biological contactor. And so that leaves them with one contactor that's handling all the waste, which is doable. The only problem is if that goes down. And so they had immediately ordered a new one, and which they really need to do, because this is one of those things that are unprecedented when a facility loses all of its operational capability. And it was at that point we had spoken with the township, and the township said, we're just not seeing any bidders for the other project, and this is much more critical for us. We also have a booster pump issue with low pressure on the north side of the village. Is there any way we can apply, part of it, some of it, to each project? That's what we proposed. To us, it really doesn't matter whether you're applying this to the RBC or you're paying for them to do the regular maintenance. To us, it's that $350,000 that will make the difference to the township and allow them to afford both projects. So I asked Supervisor Elverson what would happen if you didn't have this money, and they said, well, they'd have to pick, and obviously the RBC unit is critical. That has to be replaced. They'd have to hold off on the water booster station. We also spoke after one of the past meetings with county attorneys about that. That's when the whole shift to ARPA came about, and he explained that it's going to be really difficult to do this with county general fund monies, but the ARPA specifically suited for this. It works great. And by the way, it would help make it cleaner if we just picked one project instead of doing two. And so that was the intent at that last meeting where this was tabled, to have the new one get on the agenda, but it did not. So that is one of the reasons for some of the confusion there. But and I know that, county board is looking at other projects internal to the county to fund with some of this money. But what I did want to say about that is when it comes to, picking these projects, we certainly, as the drain office, could have said, hey, we have other pressing projects with drains and with wastewater system. We just as soon keep that $350,000 and use it on our own projects. But the reality is those relationships we have with local units are the most important relationships that we have in our industry, because we work with utilities. We all work together, in large part making a stand against the state and some of their burdensome regulations. So we do not see this as giving away money that's going to affect our operations. It's a very good investment. The township received money from Enbridge Corporation a number of years ago, and authorized our use of around $20,000 for a drain in Handy Township. And so this back and forth happens all the time. And so from a value perspective, we think it's money well spent, especially for a township that has struggled to get users and has only in the last several years begun to operate in the black and put monies away for reserve. So we see an awful lot of value in that. And that's the reason we felt it was important to help the township. Also, the bonds were not slated to be paid off until 2030. We looked at the bond books today, and the township paid those off early. Otherwise, they'd still be under the county name and technically owned by the county. So I think that was kind of a big thing they did. It took a lot of money because I think the overall bond issuance there was around 9 million between the two bond issues. So anyway, they've done an awful lot of things, tighten the belts beyond what you should be able to tighten belts to get where we are now. And that partnership we've always had is extraordinarily important to us. We feel this is a worthy endeavor.
Thank you. We're still discussing whether the amendment should be effective. Any further comment, questions? Mr. Deaton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Drainage Commissioner John, the supply line and the negative flow, does that have any effect on the pumps by having that negative flow? Are they two separate?
No, that doesn't affect the pumps. What it does do is cause sediment to settle out, and you could have a backup as a result. And so what the township has been doing is going in there at least quarterly with a Vector truck and cleaning it out. It's not a big deal, but still it costs money to do that. And it's something you'd rather not have to deal with.
Did the county build that line, or did we have a subcontractor?
The county built it through the DPW, but we had a contractor that installed that. So we had an engineer that oversaw the project. And to be truthful, we can't, whether it happened on our watch, it happened after. The only thing we can, from our experience is say it was probably laid that way, or it is in a similar, probably negative grade, and it was not caught by the engineers. And the engineers are out of business at this point.
You answered my question. I think we got the engineers for not using the proper aggregate to support the supply line. So,
yeah,
thank you.
Mr. Delmas?
Thank you. Brian, is there, with respect to the fact that we're dealing with ARPA money here, is there any proportionality that exists between types of projects that your office gets involved in and how much of the ARPA funding is for water, wastewater projects?
No, there was essentially what we did was look at all of our projects, and we understood the ones that were in worse shape and the ones where the fix was going to be an extraordinarily large burden on the property owners. And those are the ones that we prioritized and subsequently chose. Now, originally we did, I think our original ask was for 9.6 million. And we later trimmed that down to about 8.4, I believe. And then the county board ultimately approved about 6.3 million and said, hey, make it work with your project. So we took some out of there. But obviously, I don't see all the asks that are presented to this board, but I think in a project or the ARPA intent was to fund infrastructure. And obviously broadband is a big component of that. Certainly what's mentioned more than virtually anything else in the ARPA document is water and sewer. And that was a big intent, and that includes stormwater as well. So from a proportionality standpoint, do we wish we had more? Yeah. But we're happy with, I think, what we have. In the time limit we have to spend it, it doesn't allow for us to fund 100 projects as much as we'd like to. So yeah, do we wish we had more? But again, we're happy that we've gotten the money we've got so far.
Thank you.
Thank you. it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. I've spoken on this issue before. I've done some research over the weekend and the prior week, and I didn't see anything that changes my mind. I'm still a no vote. I want to expand on some things that, I did email out a report to commissioners, I titled Analysis of Handy Township ARPA Project. I printed out a copy and gave a hard copy to each commissioner tonight. So I want to hit on some highlights of that report. I looked at meeting minutes from Handy Township Board over the last year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. And I was surprised to find out that the RBC was actually a problem about a year ago. Because when we were presented information in our last meeting, I concluded that this was an emergency. It happened, it broke, and we better do something about it. But in fact, it's been on the table of things to address for a year. And so I'm not pleased by that finding. I'm a little bit disturbed. I would like to have the whole story right off the bat, where I don't have to go and look and find, oh, this is different than what I had been initially informed. So that's just a philosophical problem, I guess you'd say. I saw in the Handy Township meeting minutes that there was a discussion in November of '23 about how are they going to fund this and increasing the readiness to serve charge on the sewer users, which in my view, this, fixing this RBC or replacing it is the responsibility of the users of the service. And I'm told there's about 400 plus households that are served by that. The amount of money that is being asked for, $350,000, if you were to take that and spread the cost to every household and amortize it over 10 years, you're talking about $100 a year per household, which I think that's not a catastrophic amount of money that's going to break a household. And actually they're getting the benefit of the service being provided. And it is a enterprise fund, and enterprise funds are supposed to collect revenues commensurate with to pay for the expenses. I have a problem with providing outside funding to an enterprise fund. If we were to take the $1,000 per homeowner, per household in this sewer district and say, let's give every citizen $1,000, per household. That would, we couldn't do it because it would be $70 million it would be $70 million. And plus it's not good public policy just to be giving away money. I couldn't find out in the Handy Township meeting minutes, what did Handy Township spend their ARPA money on? They had $550,000. Did they spend any of it on sewer related stuff? I did see in the minutes that they spent $500,000 on an election building, a building that was purchased to handle early voting. And that one kind of surprised me because, early voting is a building, is an event that you might use a couple times a year, maybe. Maybe you'd have a special election, maybe it'd be 3 times a year. So Handy Township made the decision that I'll say building being used part-time was of more, I'll say, value than the fixing the RBC or addressing the low water pressure. you know, that's their decision, that's their money, they can decide what to do with it. But I don't think the county should be subsidizing the Handy Township on the sewer stuff when they had money, when they potentially had money that they could have used on their own. I think from a COVID standpoint, you know, the monies for ARPA were there to mitigate COVID damage, if you will, to citizens, to units of government, to private entities that got government grants. If we're going to give away money that is COVID related, there are in my view, far more, there's other issues that we could spend money on. You know, one of the things that troubles me greatly, it still troubles me greatly, is the county's role in excluding and quarantining kids from school. That still troubles me very greatly, that the county had a role in that whole fiasco. So why don't we give money to the kids that couldn't go to school? I mean, we have other issues too, and we've heard the county administrator talk about, we have more capital improvement requests this year than in prior years. If you tallied up all of the requests that we could potentially spend money on county money, which is, we were given ARPA money to spend things on the county, you know, the townships got their own money. We're talking tens of million, I guess, on the worst case, $70 million. So we have lots of things to spend the money on that are our responsibility, yet we're going to give away a portion of it to a township that I believe that's irresponsible. Me as representing the county board, citizens throughout the county, you know, Handy Township needs to take care of their own citizens. That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Proceed.
are we going to vote on the amendment and then have discussion on the amendment?
That's the protocol. Yes.
Okay, so I will.
We're discussing the amendment.
Okay.
We're discussing whether we should put the amendment on the agenda.
Okay. I will address just that, because I think some of the comments talk more than just this amendment, but the whole project. I think that I'm happy with it either way. Because you put money into the pot, you know, where the money comes out sometimes is not relevant. But I think that this just makes it clearer what the intent is. I think that whether it's 2 or 1 probably will not change any person's view on this matter. So I will give my opinion on the whole matter after we discuss, after we find out if this amendment passes, or we'll be voting on the other one. So.
Seeing no further hands, we'll do a voice vote on the motion to amend and consider the new paperwork. All those in favor kindly say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? The new paperwork substitutes for the old paperwork, and we now need a motion to proceed on the amended.
No, we're all set.
No.
We're all set.
You're just going to do discussion on this as
Yes.
amended.
Okay, thank you.
Or proceed with the vote.
Discussion is open. If a drain commissioner wants to speak further, that's fine. Any questions for him first?
I have
Commissioner
some
Gross?
questions. Oh, go ahead.
We'll go.
Brian, if we approve this, Is this gonna be handled just like every other resolution? Everything will be coordinated, and done through the Drain Commission? I guess what I'm wondering, we're not gonna write a check to the township to cover the expenses. We're gonna pay for that through the Drain Commission like you would any other.
No, because this really it doesn't have anything to do with my role as drain commissioner, and actually as DPW no longer does, because that project was over. It's strictly between the county and Handy Township. So that's a question for legal counsel, whether they're going to need an agreement for that transfer. My guess is there's going to be some type of agreement. I could be wrong on that, but that was more of a question for Rich McNulty on how you guys are going to do that. My sense is what happens is the money is expended by the township, and then those receipts are shown, and then the money would be reimbursed, like many of our other ARPA projects were.
Our conversations with Guidehouse.
Why don't you come to the mic? People can't hear it.
Hi, I'm Robert Spalding. I work in Brian's office as a DPW coordinator. Our conversations with Guidehouse have pointed towards a sub-recipient agreement with the township. So that's how it would be handled from an agreement wise and a spending wise.
I think, and hence the mention in the document in the resolution authorizing the chair to sign any agreements to affect that allocation of funds.
Follow. I'm supportive of helping solve the problem in Handy Township. What I'm concerned about is if we end up writing a check to them, I think that's something we've not done with any other township. And I'm wondering if that opens us up to a Me Too situation. Once the other townships find out that we're giving Handy some money to solve a problem, we're gonna have a lot more problems coming our way. And I don't want that. So that's why I'm wondering if there's some way that the county can buy the RBC, the county can pay for the installation as opposed to just giving them the money.
It's a good question. I think that's a question for Rich McNulty. How you would work that, because technically the county, since the bonds were paid off, county not being owner, I think it would be difficult to expend that money without showing the benefit to and I could be wrong, because maybe that's less of an issue with the ARPA. My understanding from Rich is that there was a lot more leeway there than say using general fund monies, and he's nodding. So it sounds like that might be something we could do to do it more directly to pay for it. Either way, it was something, it was identified quite some time ago as now the method of payment wasn't specified, but the intent is that it would go, once the township expended the money to replace that line underneath Van Buren, they would be compensated for that. But I think there's maybe other ways to do it that might get to your question.
Because there are other wastewater treatment plants in other townships in the county. So I don't want to open the door and have Hamburg or whoever else coming to us and say, oh, we got a problem. You helped Handy, help us.
Well, at the onset of this, there was something sent out to all the townships, basically saying, hey, are there any needs? And a lot of the townships submitted. It was my understanding the townships have somehow received money directly, and I could be wrong, but there certainly were requests by townships out there. This is the only one that we would identify that we were directly involved with the construction of, and there's a material defect in there, although we don't know exactly the cause. And plus, it's probably, of all the systems we've seen in the last 20 years, the most at risk. It's a small system. It was built right during the downturn of the economy. And for a small municipality, has really had to shoulder an awful lot of the burden. So again, going back to, we looked at various projects and the ones that were more at risk and more impactful to its users. And that's kind of how it got on the list.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I understand, the money was proven ARPA prior to this board coming on, so they were expecting it, and it's being redirected to the RBC. And I want to thank your office for taking my calls, prior questions on this. And they had 2 pumps, right? One has failed. They're down to 1, correct?
The RBC unit, yeah.
RBC unit, yeah.
Yep.
And so this one is in need of repair. So what I took from a lot of the conversations is when this one fails and it's the drain commission, we're gonna probably end up having larger bills if this pump fails.
We wouldn't, because we've constructed the project. The project, from the county's perspective, is finished. However, if, and this is, I mentioned before, is basically unprecedented. If they were to lose that second RBC unit, then all wastewater treatment would stop. And that's a problem. I mean, you just never hear about that happening. And you would see Lansing become involved very quickly in this, possibly some fines. But the worst issue is you would have, hundreds, maybe even to the thousands of users that could no longer use their plumbing for any type of waste disposal. And actually, Commissioner Drick had approached me about looking at ways in the event that does happen before the new RBC unit is installed. We're going to be talking about to MDOT and other partners to see if that does happen. We have a quick way of getting wastewater to another treatment facility. So we don't want it. It's not likely to happen, but it could. So we're going to be doing some planning, making sure we have an out in the event that happens.
Do we have an alternative?
Well, there's always alternatives, pumping and hauling, but depending on the time frame, you'd be talking hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions to pump and haul that waste. But I think it probably, one of the first things we thought of was to talk to the village in the event of an emergency to see if that's something that where they could handle the flow for, or even part of the flow would help save a lot of money.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Domas. Who's over there on the next?
I don't know, but whatever.
Well, that's why there are 2 RBC units in the system, because of the potential failure of one of them or the other.
Right.
And so it's not it's not an issue that would never take place. One of them is out right now. And so it's you duplicate the equipment so that you're never out of business, essentially. And in the sewer business, which is where I sort of cut my teeth, if you want to put it that way, in a different sense, of course. But you just don't want to be without either one of those 2. And if the second one fails, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, we don't want to go there, definitely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, a couple questions. This is a relatively new water treatment plant and a relatively small one. To start, the expenses of a smaller place is would you say larger than a, it's more vulnerable anyways, a smaller one. And has the county been involved in starting wastewater treatment? Like the Heartland Tyrone? How was the county involved in getting, and how much money was expended and county funds used? How was county funds used to start that project or get it underway?
There were no county funds other than the administrative monies in our general fund to have meetings. any of those costs were incurred by the townships at the time. So while we procedurally went through and we had, attorneys drafting contracts and things like that, those were, once the bonds were sold, those expenses were reimbursed. And then any of the expenses for construction were done through bonds. So again, there was the administrative costs that we probably incurred initially until bonds were sold. Other than that, all of our time, and in fact, our time, every day that we spend on one of these projects actually gets billed to that particular utility and is reimbursed back to the county.
Okay, so, and Handy was owned by, while the bonds were still due, the county still owned that, had ownership of that. And the same with Heartland, with that system there, the county at this point owns those. Technically.
Yes, and that was a stipulation of Genesee County, a little bit different. They basically said, if we're going to deal with multiple townships in another county, we are only going to deal with the county. In this case, like the one we built in Brighton, in the Howell Township plant, it was always anticipated that we would construct on behalf of the township, the facility, because we had a much better bond rating, and we saved the townships a fair amount of money doing that. And then it would be turned over for their operation. And if you look at those agreements, they basically all state once the indebtedness is paid off, ownership will revert to the local unit. So those, like this one was always intended to be turned back over. It was really only because of the outstanding debt that the county had ownership interest in it.
But the Drain Commission has always been involved in wastewater projects, at least to get them going. And was the Drain Commission was involved in putting that line underneath the road. Were they also involved with the planning of that wastewater treatment plant? Do you know that or don't know?
Oh,
that?
yeah. We weren't involved very much because often when these projects come to the DPW, so it's my involvement as director of the DPW where I was involved, really not as drain commissioner. Those plans, the township at that point has already done a fair amount of design and said, hey, we want to move forward with this. It's time to talk with the county. So while we knew they were doing it, we did have very little to do with the design. Now, we actually questioned the use of an RBC unit, and Commissioner Domas can probably tell you some of the old horror stories of RBC units, but we questioned it, but we were told that, those plans or those problems had been worked out. And I think probably largely they have. In this case, apparently not. And I don't know that anybody can explain what the true reason is, but it's not an uncommon issue for these RBC units looking back quite a ways.
Okay. If a water treatment plant fails, is the county the next person to take ownership of it? Or let's, because there are other water treatment, maybe in a trailer court or something like that. If they fail, are they turned back over to the county? What if Handy, completely failed? They could not operate their system anymore. What would happen?
It's a good question. There'd probably be somebody here asking the county to take over. I will say we have had the similar situations that predate me where maybe a developer has even gone under and we've assumed the operations of the wastewater system. So, that predates me. So it would be, I don't know, and I'm less able to predict the state now than I was, 20 years ago.
Okay.
But it obviously would be a major to do. Legally, though, there's no connection there where they would come back. The county is not currently an owner. We relinquished, turned over easements and property. All of that have been returned to the township. So they wouldn't be knocking on our door if that failed, although probably the media would. But it would have to be something that the county board desires to go in and help them if that was the decision.
Or a judge would get involved.
Or a judge potentially,
Okay, I have a couple other comments, if I could, Mr. Chair. When the ARPA money came, we divvied it up to different, to different things, and I always favored giving a lot of money to the Drain Commission because, you guys are the kind of the magic behind everything that nobody sees. And when we gave you the opportunity to put your mark on where you wanted the money to go. And basically we okayed what you did. This is I say just a change of where the money goes. And to me, if that's where you think this money should go, then I think that goes underneath the heading that we initially gave you the decision to say where the money was needed the most. That came through your department. I've talked a lot about this. I probably know more about this than a lot of us because I've been at these township meetings and I've heard a lot of discussion about the RBC thing and all of the work that they've done to make it work. And so I think that this is a valuable expenditure of ARPA funds. And I think that in that the Drain Commission thinks that this is a good use of the money that we put into their mix of things, that I think that this is very valuable. And so I think that's all I have to say right now.
Commissioner Sample. Out of all the ARPA funds that you guys spend in the drain office, how many of those ARPA funds went to special assessment districts?
I'm going to say, well, a lot of them haven't been spent yet, but of the ones, I think it was between 2 and 3 million for those specific drainage districts. And some of those haven't been constructed yet. Some of them have, and there's a few that probably won't be constructed just because of their timeframes and everything else. So we took a look at that actually today, and there's likely to be about $250,000 or $350,000 that we will not be utilizing anyways, just because of timing and other things. So that's what I thought it was going to be more actually, but that's what Ken came up with today. So there will be some additional monies we probably do not utilize.
Yeah, so out of those monies into them special assessment districts, that's going to save those special assessment district folks money, similar to what this will do for the folks that are connected to this RBC.
Right, exactly. Obviously, the users pay for everything here. It's important to remember is that, the monies were set aside for water and sewer, and basically all water and sewer projects are are enterprise funds. So they were intended for enterprise funds, and that's where a lot of the money, whether it's in Livingston or Genesee or other counties, have gone to. You almost can't have a utility. I'm sure there are some circumstances or some special cases out there, but essentially, if you're a utility, you're a enterprise fund. And from what we see, we're talking to our attorneys and the experts out there, this is one of the primary directions that the ARPA money was intended to go to. But again, same thing is it has a direct impact on their users, just like the expenditure would be on one of our districts. And our districts are also separate public corporations. They're very similar to a township. They're separate from Livingston County. And just as the township is separate, they're not identical. They have different laws and rules, obviously, but they function a lot in the same manner, again, as separate public entities.
So it wouldn't be the first time that the drain departments utilize ARPA funds to supplement an assessment district.
No, absolutely not.
Commissioner Deep, just a quick question for council or administration. No issues by moving it again, moving the money from one project to another with ARPA? No issues? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And then the final one is, if people can't see the resolution, the final resolved is that the township or the drain commission will give updates on the project. So, thank you.
I have a question. Reading through the minutes back from 2023, the first problem developed at the North RBC. And the first thought was, it's bearings, it's a gearbox, let's get those replaced. And an installation of a refurbished RBC in an amount not to exceed 50K. And then apparently there were problems when the refurbished came. It didn't fit, wasn't the correct type. And then it turned out that the refurbished was such a problem, they decided to purchase a new one. What happened to the money for the refurbished one? Did they get a refund of that?
That is a question I cannot answer. I was not a part of that.
Okay.
I think from our perspective is that whether that money, goes into a RBC unit or it goes into, repairing cracks, in the tanks or whatever it is, we could really, from our standpoint, we really don't care what it does. The impact to the users is $350,000, and that to us is the primary consideration. But I know Ed is here tonight. I think he's still here. Ed, you still here? If Ed, I'm sure, has been involved in all those. If you had a question related to that.
My next question then is based on the minutes, and they say the RBC has not been delivered. We do not have a current quote for the purchase of a new RBC. I'm guessing that was the decision to just forget repair, forget refurbish, and go for new. What is the quote for the new RBC? I haven't seen a document. I haven't seen a estimate. I haven't seen a piece of paper. Any idea?
Mr. Chair, Ed Alverson is here.
I agree. I'm asking the drain commissioner first. Do you know what the price of a new, I'm guessing parts, labor, and put the roof back on and crane and all that stuff.
Right.
But do we have a quote for the new RBC that I think is
Well,
going to be purchased?
my understanding is the RBC unit has been ordered, so there was a quote and that was agreed to. And I believe they have a quote from an installer to do the work on it. Now, whether that installer ends up doing the work, I'm not sure. Again, we would not be handling that through the Board of Public Works. It's not being a current project. It would be a handy thing.
Mr. Alverson, if you'd come up, please. What's the quote on the piece of paper for the new RBC?
$232,000 just for the piece of equipment, just for the cylinder,
For the equipment.
$232,000.
And did you get some money back on the retrofit or the refurb?
The money,
that never fit?
the money was not spent. We were working with a corporation out of Illinois called Walker Corporation. They put us in touch with a company and we were looking at a refurbished RBC as an insurance policy.
No
we
money
did-
spent on that though.
No, we did not want to sit there with one RBC working. And we looked at this refurbished.
Okay, so 232 for the piece of equipment, but then there's a ton of labor and all that stuff. right?
That is correct. They figured the install will take at least 2 weeks.
Did you get an estimate for the installed labor?
Walker wouldn't give us that. They gave us the vendors. HRC was at our meeting just recently. And they're thinking it's going to go probably between $150,000 and $200,000. So we had a group of people who looked at the site, everything from the wiring to the installation to the leveling. And the reason why we didn't go with the refurbished, they wanted to start to modify the area that the RBC goes into. And once they modified it, then the new RBC wasn't going to fit properly. And we said,
So-
no, thanks.
So if we limit our contribution of ARPA funds of 350,000, it doesn't get the project done.
We understand that. We'll pay the rest. Originally, just wanted to go 175 on the one project, 175 on the other. And then we were there to take care of all the rest.
Yeah, your plan is it's still intended to still do the water booster. Or the booster
Your
pump.
decision tonight makes a big part of what
Well,
we're going to do.
you can't afford to do both if we don't. do
Right,
it.
that is
So
correct
thi-
right now.
This approval of these ARPA funds will allow you to take care of the other problem.
That is correct.
And then you'll continue to take care of the Van Buren Road problem by water jetting that
Actually,
or pumping. Well, they will,
Brian and I haven't talked lately, but we jet it every 2 weeks.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that problem's not gonna go away.
No, but there was a big debate in the beginning when you look at how much it was gonna cost to put that new line in and then when you borrow money
I
with
understand. I'm
interest.
just saying that the ARPA funds that we allocated to fix that problem,
Yes,
this board voted for and approved it.
Yep.
So it's,
yeah,
we're still, we're taking what we have approved previously, applying it to a problem that can be taken care of. And you guys will retain funds that you have to take care of another problem and continue to take care of the problem you've been taking care of.
correct.
Thanks. That's the way I understand it.
You understand it well.
Thank
Any
you.
further questions? Any further analysis? Commissioner Nakagiri?
Thank you. Go for my second round here. What are the Supervisor Albertson, could you tell me what the sewer rates are for a household?
The sewer rates
You know,
are approximately $66 a month.
does that include everything? The readiness to serve charge?
Yes.
The commodity charges?
We're going to a new system in the near future
Okay.
based on the amount used.
How about water rates?
Water rates are around 35.
Those rates don't seem, from my understanding of rates, don't seem exorbitantly high. Would you comment on, are they?
In the Lansing State Journal, they had a rate, they compared municipalities 2 to 3 years ago. We were in the top third as far as rates being expensive.
The, did Handy Township spend any of their ARPA money on sewers or water?
Not yet. We've engineering. We've spent money on engineering through HRC. We have not spent it on equipment yet.
How much was engineering?
Oh, $7,000 to $10,000.
Excuse me, did you say 110,000 or just 10,000?
7 to 10,000.
Oh, 7 to 10,000. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to comment on, my perspectives on the Heartland Tyrone sewers, which are operated by the Livingston Regional Sewer System. But the entire costs were borne by the users of the service, period. And then with regards to, funding drain projects, which I voted on funding, drain projects. I voted in favor of funding these drain projects because these were huge, huge expenditures that were going to hit they were very few users in a drain district. And then so trying to spread the costs out, you've got some huge, as I said earlier, I do not see $100 a year for the people that are using the sewer system in Handy as an exorbitant cost to get their sewer equipment fixed. I have one question on the low water pressure, and I know this resolution, we're not focused on the low water pressure, but what is the root cause of low water pressure?
If you go north of the village, about 3/10 of a mile, you come to Silver Springs. And the water pressure, as it is fairly level ground, at the entry point of Majestic Avenue, it's around 48 pounds. Now, this is another one about, I would say, engineering, is that Majestic has an incline. And when that line was installed, they did not make an adjustment for that incline. So that when you get back, in the first phase, there were 39 homes. And it's at the end of a dead end line, the water pressure is 38 pounds. So going up there from 48 to 51, going up the incline and around the curve, it drops to 38.
So was that the ones with the 38, were they homes that were added to the system? Were they,
They're part of the original part of the whole project. Yeah, it was part of the original phase. And it sat there for years with 38 homes. And so what we're trying to do is give them the adequate pressure. Most people who want to water yards or do other things have plumbers come in and do adjustments, give them the water pressure they need to water their yard or to have a nice shower.
Okay, so the water pressure has been low since day one, is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge, that was created when they built it. We get our water for Silver Springs from the village. The village does not have high water pressure. And in 2015, we worked with the village to say, can you help us solve this? And they said no. They did not have the capacity to increase their water pressure. So from day one, early on, this has been an issue.
Okay. I think I'm set. Thank you.
Just talk a little bit about the relationship between Fowlerville and Handy. I was on the village council when Silver Springs went in. The village could solve this system problem with the RPC by putting a line underneath the expressway and connecting to the village system. The village refused to do it. It would have, and I was on the village council. That decision never came up. That was made before I was there, but that was the worst decision the village ever made. We wouldn't be sitting here today if the village had put a line underneath the expressway. And if they would have taken care of the water pressure that's going, it was a village. Both of these things are Village of Fowlerville problems. They're caused by the Village of Fowlerville, which, sad to say, I was on the council for a while, but at least we did a nice water treatment for the Handy Township north of the expressway, but not very many users out there. So a lot of capacity in Fowlerville, but.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Please.
The village did not have the wherewithal to build their wastewater treatment plant. And the township sure didn't want to build one on the north side of the expressway. So the township invested $3 million in REU's capacity of that plant, so the village could build their plant. Someday when the economy picks up, Handy Township has many REUs they can provide for sewer to go in that plant and regain some of the revenue.
Joint Commissioner John Kier, in your memo of June 8, you presume the township will be merely requesting reimbursement for expenses. Is that the township's position, that what we're gonna do is reimburse up to 350,000 as bills get sent to us? Or as paid bills get sent to us? I'm the guy that's gonna have to sign the contracts and do all this stuff, so what am I being asked to do? Write a check for 350 and give it to them? Or am I gonna wait till paid expenses come across the desk and pay those?
Well, again, I think that's a question for the attorneys who write that agreement. But my understanding in the past, and this is a question for Cindy, I think that our projects, those expenses have been incurred and then that has been transferred over. So I'm making a guess is that it would be handled the same way. It's really a question for how the agreement's written up.
So past practice is incur the expense, then dip into the 350 as you go along.
No, that's correct.
Does that sound right? Is that how you write it?
Oh, Rich, all right.
That's all I need to hear. Thank you. Any further questions, comment, analysis, objection, applause, anything?
If it makes you feel better, then be it further resolved, it lets you take care of all that.
It was a bit vague. I wanted to pin it down.
It's pretty.
Because
I read it.
because Ed just heard it. Yeah. That it's reimbursed, not just get a 350 check. Got it. Okay, I'll close discussion and comment, and we'll move into roll call vote.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Domas.
Yes.
Commissioner Sample,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
No.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Deaton,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Fiani,
No.
and Commissioner Gross.
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
On number 10 on the agenda, reports. Is there any report any commissioner would like to disseminate to the rest of the commissioners tonight? Commissioner Deaton, floor is yours.
I'll do a quick one. Wednesday, the 19th, Brighton Township opened up one of their first parks. It's a Veterans Park. And thank you to the Conley family for donating that property and to the Huntley family for donating the War Dog Memorial. I got invited to come over for it. It was a great celebration and a really cool park for the community. So I just want to tell them thank you for that. That was it.
Thank you. Any further reports by any commissioner? Commissioner Fiani.
Yesterday, I had the privilege of attending what was the Boys State kickoff. It was held over in Howell. It was actually organized by our Commissioner Roger Deaton, who, by the way, is it Legionnaire of the Year? Is that correct? Legionnaire of the Year?
Yes, for the state.
Which was quite impressive. I'm not sure if everybody heard that, but or was aware of that, but yeah, Commissioner Deaton organized this kickoff for the Boys State. Boys State is a week-long leadership program, and the tradition is typically high school students going into their senior year will travel to the location, which this year was Grand Valley State, but instead, they were sent off in style, and there was a breakfast for them, and I was privileged to attend, and it was great. In fact, even Congressman Tom Barrett sent a message in wishing all of them well, and Brighton School Board President Roger Meyer spoke as well, and our Chief Deputy Register of Deeds Brandon Bearfield spoke, who also is a graduate of the Boys State program. So I was very impressed.
Any other further reports? Hearing none, I'll close item number 10 on the agenda and move to item number 11A. Resolution for consideration. It's number 2024-06-082. It's a resolution to accept the 2023 Livingston County Financial Audit brought to us by the Board of Commissioners and/or Jennifer Nash.
Motion to approve.
Support Deaton.
Fiani made the motion, Deaton supported. Do you wish to say anything?
Well, Mr. Bill Bricky is the Ecoran
Thank you.
partner.
Mr.
who's
Bricky,
here
come on
tonight-
forward.
Yep, who's here tonight to present the results of the 2023 financial audit. Mr. Bricky has been on Livingston County audit for many, many years. It's always a pleasure working with him and his team, and I'll let him take it from here.
Have a seat.
Okay.
Mr. Bricky, when you're seated comfortably, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you and good evening. So as mentioned, I'm here to talk about the audit for the year ended December 31, December 23 for the county. So there really are several audit deliverables that we have as part of your audit. So hopefully you received in your packet, we have the financial statements themselves. We have two separate letters. One is our end of audit letter to the Board of Commissioners on the audit process. We have a report on internal controls over financial reporting. And finally, we have the graph presentation, which we'll go through in just a moment. In addition, there is another audit still going on related to the audit of your federal grants. That is actually due September 30th, and we expect to complete that in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Before I get started, I want to take just a brief moment and really thank your entire team for their assistance throughout the audit. We are kind of from start to finish. It's about a 3-month process, and your team just does a great job getting ready and kind of sticking with us throughout the process. We appreciate all of their assistance. So we have covered all of these documents in detail with management. My goal tonight is really to give you a high-level overview of the documents and highlight a few things along the way. So the first thing I want to comment on is really our main deliverable to you as your auditor, and that's our opinion on your financial statements. So included in the financial statements are pages 1 through 3 is our opinion on your financial statements. So the county did receive what we refer to as an unmodified audit opinion in the current year, which essentially means the statements are in compliance with all the rules and regulations. Often we call that, a clean audit report. The other thing I'd like to point out is that we do not audit the road commission's financial statements. Those are provided to us by another auditor, and then we insert them into your financial statements. So again, they are included in your statements, but we do not give a direct opinion on those statements. The next thing I want to just briefly talk about the 2 separate letters that we issue. Again, the end of audit letter, which has 2 sections, and then our report on internal controls. If we had any audit findings or issues at all, they would be reported in these 2 letters. Happy to report that we do not have any, significant audit findings or issues to report to you tonight, but we do have a couple minor items that I would like to comment on. So included in the 5-page letter, which has 2 sections, on page 2, the 4th paragraph, we do have 2 non-compliance matters in the current year related to budgeting. And these are kind of, I'd say, a little bit nuanced administrative items, but the county did not budget for the opioid fund. That does have some activity in the current year. And in addition, the ARPA fund was actually budgeted in a deficit, which I believe was just an oversight. But the county is required to budget for all special revenue funds, which the opioid fund is. And you're not allowed under the State Budget Act to budget a deficit. So those 2 items are disclosed as non-compliance. Again, relatively minor, but you will see those commented on in that letter. In addition, the county does have 3 deficits in the current year, and this is similar to what we've had in the past. And I would, again, consider these minor items, but they are reported to the state of Michigan, and you will need to file deficit elimination plans with the county. So the 3 funds that have deficits are the ARPA fund, the state and other grants fund, and the federal grants fund. And again, these deficits, 2 of them are around $50,000, the others around $300,000, and they're really more or less related to the timing of when certain things are paid and recorded. I think you would have approved these plans last year. So on balance, again, I'd say they're minor deficits, but they do need plans filed with the state of Michigan on those items. So with that, that was all I was going to mention on the report. I'll cover some of the graphs here, which is a summary of some of the key financial data, and then certainly can answer any questions that you have along the way. So I want to start off just looking at the first graph here, provide a little history of the revenue of the county's general fund. So you'll see a 4-year history here. So in the current year, the revenue was just over $59 million in the general fund, which is about a $6.8 million increase over 2022 and about a 13% increase overall. As we kind of look at the categories, you'll see, you know, property taxes, which is the orange bar there, continues to be the #1 revenue source of the county as expected, and did increase about $2.7 million over the previous year. And important to note that increase was related to increases in property values and new development. There was no increase in the county's overall millage. So really just a growth related increase in revenue there. So looking at the other services, some of the ones that had some, I would say, more significant changes, you can see the federal, state, and local item there went up about $600,000. That was primarily due to increases in revenue sharing and other monies received from the state of Michigan. The other column there, which is primarily interest and rental monies that are received, you saw a nice increase there of about $2.5 million. And that's almost 100% related to increase in investment income. So obviously with investment rates going up, the county is able to make investment income on its cash balances and cash reserves. So you did see a nice increase there, like I said, of about $2.4 million in investment earnings in the current year. And then the final item there, the transfers line, that's new. You'll see historically that's been relatively minor or zero. The $1.5 million there, what that actually was is the ARPA funds, which are accounted for separately from the general fund. The investment earnings on those cash reserves are able to be transferred to the general fund because those are unrestricted monies, and that's what that transfer is. So again, the investment earnings coming into the general fund there. So that really accounted for that $6.8 million increase in revenue that you saw in the current year. The next graph, we'll just take a quick look at the makeup of your revenue. And so as expected, and as I kind of discussed, 63% of the general fund revenue comes from property taxes. And then the other key items, the other there, which again is primarily rental and investment income, is 13%, followed by federal grants and then charges for services making up the remainder of the county's revenue streams. And I think the reason we show it this way is just so you can see, obviously, as you're aware, that the property tax piece is a substantial portion of the general fund's budget. So if we shift gears and look at the expenditure side of the equation, again, like we did with revenue, we're just going to look at a 4-year history of the general fund expenses. Overall, you can see the total expenses in the general fund this year were just over $46.6 million, which is actually about a $770,000 decrease from where you were last year, or about a 2% decline there. Again, as we look at the components, public safety continues to be the largest cost for the county at just over $30 million, which is consistent with where you were last year. As we look at some of the changes, I'll just point out a couple fluctuations. General government, you'll see increased in the current year by about $1.6 million. The primary reason for that increase was the county did make additional pension contributions in the current year, and the general fund paid for about $2.4 million of that. So and that falls in that general government category. So the increase there really relates to those additional pension contributions. You'll see health and welfare actually declined about $1.2 million in the current year. Not that you spent less on health and welfare, it's just that many of those costs were paid for by the ARPA fund. And so again, that's segregated in a separate fund. So costs that were historically borne by the general fund were paid for with ARPA funds there. And then finally, you can see the economic development, which could read economic development and infrastructure, was relatively consistent. And then the orange bar, which is transfers to other funds, declined slightly. And that transfers is really just the county moving money to other funds to fund different operations. So overall, your cost structure remains relatively consistent with where it was with just those few variances there that I mentioned. The next graph, we'll take a look again, similar, just looking at this in a pie chart function. And again, I think the highlight here is that, the county continues to be, committed to providing public safety for the county residents and businesses. And you can see 64% of the total general fund budget relates to, public safety. And then again, general government's the next biggest at 17%. And I would just point out that that 17% includes additional pension contributions this year. So up from last year where it was 13%, but again, there were some one-time costs in there. And then the next graph, I want to spend just a moment and talk about the legacy costs of the county. This is something that's very large for all governments. And so we'd just like to give you an update on where you stand here. So we have the two legacy cost items. We have the pension system, which is through MERS. And then you have the retiree healthcare plan, which is administered by the county itself. So looking at your overall, pension assets and liabilities, you'll see the orange bar there are the assets. So that's the investments that you hold. And then the blue bar there, that's the actuarial determined liability. So that's the estimate of what the cost is of everything that's been incurred. And the difference there is the liability. So the pension system at the end of the year was about 72% funded, which means there's about a $57 million liability that exists that's recorded on the county's books. I will point out that because you're in MERS and the way that works is you're actually on a year lag. So although we do the audit for December 31, 2023, all of the pension related liabilities are measured as of December 31, 2022. And so because of that, the investment market was not in a great spot in December of 22. So that's why your funding dropped in the current year to 72% from 86% in the prior year. So again, we're measuring these things at a point in time and as of 22, those investments had declined. I'd venture to say they're probably much, much higher if we looked at the MERS data as of 2023. When we look at the retiree healthcare or the OPEB costs, those assets are actually valued as of December 31, 23. And you can see there that the funding at the end of the year, you're actually overfunded by about $3.4 million. And at the end of the year, we're 118% funded compared to 111% funded last year. So again, I think, seeing the decline in pension funding, even though you've put in additional contributions, can seem a little odd. But again, the additional contributions that were put in 23, those will show up in next year's numbers for the 24 audit. So that 1 year lag does have an impact on that. And then the final graph I want to touch on is really just to look at all of the additional contributions that the county has been making. So for the last 10 years plus, you've been putting additional contributions in. So the actuary calculates what you're required to put in based on the state law. And then the county's made additional contributions as funds are available to get that funding up. And as I mentioned, in the current year, you did put in an extra $3.6 million into the MERS pension plan to help increase that funding. And if we look at this graph, in totality over the 10 years, you've really put about $29.6 million of additional contributions in there to get that funding percentage to an adequate level. And again, I'm sure next year when we look at the contributions, if the market, stays well, that you'll be much more funded than we showed on the previous graph. So with that, from an overall perspective, I think the county continues to be in, good financial health. You have strong internal controls and processes in place. And I think that the result of that are the positive, audit reports and financial position that we just went through here. So with that, I'll stop talking. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those at this time.
Commissioner Gross, you have the floor.
Thank you. Mr. Bricky, going back to the first chart on revenue, the line item charges for services showed a decrease of roughly 10%. Is that do you have any data as to principal cause of that or principal area of operations?
Yeah, I believe most of that decrease related to declines in transfer tax. So I think there's been a slowdown in, overall real estate sales, which has impacted that line item there.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Smith. Thank you, Mr. Bricky. You mentioned the deficits in the three funds, ARPA, state, and federal. How should we best handle that so that it's additional work now because we got to file a plan basically, right? We have to file an adjustment. So how are the other municipalities handling those? So they don't, at year end, so they don't have to file this extra work.
So it's
a timing issue. That's all.
it is a timing issue, and it's a little tough in these funds because obviously you would hate, the way to fix it would be to put more money in there, but you don't want to do that. And honestly, I've talked about this a little bit with Jennifer, and sometimes it's like, I understand it's more work, but unless you wanted to make additional contributions to those funds to eliminate the deficit, it almost is you're just going to have it, and it's going to correct itself, in future periods, and it's more work. But aside from putting more money in there, that's the only, there's no quick fix.
And you won't say it, but I will say it.
Okay.
It's a stupid criteria under the state's guidelines for what equals deficit and what does not. It doesn't make sense.
Amen.
This, come on, questions here. This board has expressed some displeasure with MERS in the past. In fact, we had an opportunity to put an additional $5 million towards this pension deficit. In our infinite wisdom, we decided against that at a time when the market was about to take off by 25%. Does Plant Moran offer? I know you have a fairly large investment division. Do you handle any municipalities?
We do not.
No.
We do
It's all
not.
private money.
It's all private money. I think we'd have a bit of a conflict of interest there. So we do not.
What did you? Yes, Mr. Sure. Commissioner Smith, when you say that, when you say we didn't do it, what do we
were-
miss the boat on?
Yeah, we had an opportunity, I want to say February, March. It was brought to us by administration to dump 5 more into this pension deficit.
Yep.
And we voted it down.
And what would that have done, I guess, in relationship to what you're looking at?
Ballpark, easily $1 million in gains on that. We
Was
can
it-
only invest X amount into the, I think it's 50 or 60% into the, like an S&P market. But between that and the balance going into some better investment, we could have probably put another $1 million against the deficit.
So if we retained the 5 million where we did, how did that perform compared to the?
I'm gonna guess we made 3.5%, 4%. Does that sound right? Money that's in savings, that's in our general fund.
Oh, closer to 5.
5%, okay.
So it's not a 1.5 million
No,
difference.
but it's probably $1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Fiani.
So I strongly disagree with Commissioner Smith's sentiment. I think it was one of the wisest decisions this board has made. If we sacrifice that money, how would we fund the tower projects? How would we fund the Handy Township RBC? How would we fund the 2 additional EMS stations we're looking at to serve public safety? Additionally, I'd like to know where how we would have gained 25%, because I don't think we gained 25% in MERS last year. And if we did, that'd be beyond impressive. So I'd be curious to see what statistics you're referencing.
Yeah, I'd be glad to, it's probably something we need to take offline. I'd be glad to get that.
Okay, thank you.
With that, I will close discussion on the topic and we move to a roll call vote.
Commissioner Fiani,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Domas,
Yes.
Commissioner Sample,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri,
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes,
Commissioner Deaton,
Yes.
and Commissioner Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. We're on to 11B. Thank you, Mr. Grigg. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. 11B reads 2024-06-083. It's a resolution approving appointments to the Aeronautical Facilities Board brought to us by Board of Commissioners.
So move, Helserman.
Thank you.
Support Deaton.
You got it, buddy.
Anyone need information, questions answered? I think not. We'll close that. Voice vote, kindly say aye if you're in agreement.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9-0 passes. We're on to 11C. It's number 2024-06-084. It's a resolution authorizing Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy Material Management Plan commencement brought to us by the DPW Solid Waste. May I have a motion?
I'll move Gross.
Support, Helserman.
Thank you. Motion by Gross, support by Helserman. Everything you need to know is in the packet. Is there any questions? I think not. I think we're good.
I had something prepared. It was going to be more exciting than the audit.
More exciting. Good.
Quit while you're ahead.
All those in favor kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing
job,
none,
Rob.
9-0.
Thanks,
Thank you, Rob. We're on to 11D. It's number 2024-06-085. It's a resolution approving a letter of agreement with the union representing paramedics EMS.
So move Deaton.
Support, Helserman.
Moved by Deaton, support by Helserman. Everybody's read the incredibly short memo, hopefully. Does anybody need any further elucidation, analysis, questions? Seeing none, we'll go to voice vote. All those in agreement, kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9-0, by my count, that passes. 11E. It's number 2024-06-086. It's a resolution to approve a letter of agreement with the union representing sergeants. May I get a motion?
So moved, Sample.
Support Domas.
Moved by Sample, support by Domas. Anyone need further questions or analysis on this matter, having read what you've read? Seeing none, we'll move to voice vote. All those in favor kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, 9-0 passes. We're on to 11F. It's noted as 2024-06-087. It's a resolution authorizing HVAC ductwork modifications to be paid by General Fund Vision Tour Committed Fund Balance for, it's brought to us by Facility Services Kevin Eggleston. It's around $20,361. Can I get a motion?
So move Gross. Support Smith.
Moved by Gross, support by Smith. Does anyone need further question, comment, inquiry, objection? Seeing none, we'll close that part. We'll go to roll call vote kindly.
Commissioner Gross,
Yes.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Domas,
Yes.
Commissioner Sample,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Deaton,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
and Commissioner Fiani.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. 11G, last on the hit parade, it's 2024-06-088. It's a resolution authorizing the purchase of animal shelter HVAC units from Facility Services rough amount of $192,725. Can I get a motion, please?
So move, Helserman.
Support Gross.
Moved by Commissioner Helserman, supported by Commissioner Gross. Any analysis, questions, or need for presentation beyond the written materials? Seeing none, I'll close the discussion and ask for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Helserman,
Yes.
Commissioner Domas.
Yes.
Commissioner Sample,
Yes.
Commissioner Nakagiri.
Yes.
Commissioner Drick,
Yes.
Commissioner Deaton,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Fiani,
Yes.
Commissioner Gross.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're on to item number 12, entitled Accounts Payable Reports. 12A reads claims dated June 24, 2024. 12B reads payables dated June 1 through June 14, 2024. Can I get a motion on both?
So move Gross.
Support Thomas.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Gross, support by Commissioner Thomas. All those in favor kindly voice vote yes.
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 Any opposed? 9-0 passes unanimously on 12A and B. There is no 13 having been moved up in the agenda. We're to item 13 renumbered, call to the public number 2. It's a 2-minute presentation available to anyone that's given us a card.
I do have one card, Steve Williams, Marion Township.
Thank you. Are you seated and comfortable? You're okay to start into the microphone.
So I didn't get to finish last time, but this has just been fascinating tonight because you guys are nickel and diming these things and beating up on poor little Handy Township. And yet, since I was the commissioner representing Livingston County on the Metro Parks Board, you still haven't had a report from the director in 4 years. You realize that that's the third largest county, multi-county group that Livingston County is part of, right? After Michigan Association of Counties and SEMCOG. However, the amount of money that goes to the Metro Parks is huge compared to those two because it's the only permanent millage that Livingston County taxpayers pay. Everybody that owns property in Livingston County pays the Metro Park millage. And yet you've shown a total disinterest in having them come in and talk. Maybe because the director would tell you, oh, by the way, all this criticism of DEA, it's the same as what you have in your master plan, which is what I gave you tonight. The points are the same. The Livingston County Equity Program is the same almost as the Metro Parks DEI program. That's it. It's aimed at employees. It's aimed at teaching respect for the customers. But yet you've gone through 3 different chairmen, 1, 2, 3. You haven't had the director in. You're the only county that hasn't had the director in. And every single taxpayer, property taxpayer in Livingston County pays to the Metro Parks. So how on earth are you ignoring this? It just baffles me that you nickel and dime things, but you totally ignore not only something that's a huge benefit to us, because by the way, we are much, by far the smallest county that contributes, and yet we get far more back. So why wouldn't you want to hear about that? I don't understand. Thank you.
I have no further cards.
Anyone on Zoom who would like to raise your hand at the last minute now? This is your chance.
I did not see any, Commissioner.
Neither do I. Thank you kindly. The call to the public is closed. Anybody wish to make any remarks, any announcements of future events? Before I ask for the motion to adjourn.
So move to adjourn.
Second Deaton.
All those in favor of adjournment, kindly say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 9-0, we are adjourned.